Welcome back to the Will Is Podcast. Yeah, I told you guys we was coming back tonight with Dr. AE. Just because we take a little time apart doesn't mean we ain't cooking up some shit. You know what I'm saying? But check it out. Hey, we got a great show tonight. This is called, I'm gonna explain to everybody. You know how we do a lot of shows about where people come from, people of color, indigenous people. When I say indigenous people, I mean indigenous people are global people. They were the first people of all kinds, the first kinds of people. So when I say indigenous, it's also extremely important to know where you come from and what being an indigenous person or a person of melanin complexion. You know, the problem is if you think about indigenous people, think about the origins of where you get the name of indigenous. Let's take it out. Dr. A, you know what I'm talking about. Stuff like this. You got to have one of these. The etymology. The etymology.
Etymology.
Etymology. So if you don't have etymology, you don't know what words mean. You don't know where they came from. You don't know what they started with. You don't know when they invented it. The thing is, if you take a word like bling, uh, the Birdman say, man, if I was thinking with my right mind, I'd have got that shit corn and they had to pay me for that. But you think about how the ingenious of what he said, meaning I understand we live in an overlay society, so I operate how they operate, so I can actually bring that word into the lexicon to make it mean something because it's popularized. It's going to go into the dictionary. So it's called the buildings and always inviting in the different creativities of the Aboriginals. You know what I'm saying? So you got to think about how we feel when other uh, people of melanin come into this country, and we're very vulnerable to you because we have had when you think about racism, white supremacy, and all of those things, you understand the global impacts, but it was invented here. This is the purveyor. If you could have taken the copper colored melanated God King, you rule the world. That was the race. That was the game of the world. It started in Europe. But it also started with the agreement with Africans. It also started with the agreement with all of the other peoples of the global human lexicon. Yeah, that's not addressed a lot, but it's very true. Berlin councils, all of these things that AE is going to go into in a minute. But let's just discuss things here first because, AE is a specialist of studying the intricacies of how we got here, meaning the roots of indigenous antiquity as well as American history. This man has been through a great deal of orchestrating his path and working in, you would call, museums, uh, records,
Archive.
has an extreme archive. That's right, record and archives. You know what I'm saying? So record and archives. Understanding to have that type of access to that type of information. If you don't kind of want to adhere to, how he understands how he can read in times as well as I do, which is why we love to put on for you. We love to give you these great explanations. These what you call it, AE? What we call it? Edutainment.
Yeah, moving toward
I, I,
edutainment.
I, you dig? So what we're about to do is we're about to do one thing. We want to know why, and this is going to be a question that AE is going to have to be long-winded about. That's why I'm long-winded because this is a long-winded question. So we got Cubans. We have a whole lot of people across. I don't like to use the word diaspora because I'm not a fan completely because of this specific ideological perspective that I'm going to ask AE to expound upon as to why even me and my great brother sometimes have we're standoffish in some places, but we are always congruent. We are always in alignment. We grown men. But even in sometimes when we have our differences of perspectives, but they're not out of alignment. That's why we have to get in alignment. That's the specialty of this show, getting to know you. So, AE, this is the question. This is what I'm lining up. Why do people that are melanated and have more in common with the American Indian, the Black American, than they have with the dominant society, but will always choose power over likeness? How did we come to that conclusion that has been on display since 1965? Please elaborate, my great brother. I'm gonna. In the meantime, once he go, I'm gonna get me a snack, and I'm gonna renew myself, and I'll be right back. But AE, take us home with this one. I know you got a lot to expound upon. Please, sir, do your thing. Yes, sir.
Well, the answer to that question is actually in one word, and that word is acculturation. And so, what we have to understand is that, oddly enough, and sadly enough, in my opinion, people have chosen a different culture. Primarily, let's call it like a TI is. They've chosen white American culture as the culture that they would rather be associated with and the culture they rather live in. And so they have become acculturated. So no matter how dark you see people like Candace Owens, her skin complexion, it does not matter because she has associated herself and thoroughly immersed herself into white American culture. And she wants to be identified as such, and that's obvious. And she wraps it up in what they have always had the luxury of doing and wrapping it up into American culture, where American culture and white Anglo-Saxon Protestant culture have become synonymous, right? They've done everything they could and within their ability to ensure that quote unquote American culture is white Anglo-Saxon Protestant culture. And so sadly enough, there are just people, because we've been berated with so much negativity of surrounding being black, and it's not just African American, it's black period. Because just like for instance, my ex-wife, she's Trinidadian. From Trinidad and Tobago. She didn't come to the United States until she was in her late teens, early 20s, before she even came to America, to the United States. But when she walks in that store, she walks into that office, she walks into that room, she's black first. So we're saying black. And I use that generally because that is the general consensus. It does not matter um, where you're actually from. Your blackness is the first outward appearance to them, and that is going to be the label that they place on you. And so you have people who rather be anything but black, plain and simple. They want to be anything but black. And so they acculturate, and they don't always acculturate just into white American culture. That is, of course, the primary one. But They acculturate into other things. I've had some blacks who deny any of their melanated, whether it's indigenous black or even African ancestry, and claim to be native when it is clear that they have an amount of melanin in their skin. But because they want to acculturate to another culture, they're saying, oh, the skin doesn't matter. And I'm saying, okay, that's fine. If you want to be that, then you must make the full transition. Don't be black when it's time to be black, and any advantages thereof that you may see. If you wish to be fully immersed in another culture, then stay fully immersed into that culture, you know. Um, and so the essence comes down to also the fact that as human beings and in society, when you have a larger society, right, and you have a larger number of people that belong to this one society, the ones who are outside of that in a different culture within that dominant culture within the society, right? In time, they began to acculturate to a certain degree. And that's just natural. That is, any sociologist will tell you this. I'll use this example that I once read, and if I remember correctly, I know it was from some of my Black Panther reading. I want to say it was Elaine, um, in her Taste of Power, where she basically says that even as Black Panthers, they underestimated how much acculturation into quote unquote American culture and WASP culture they actually had done, and who and how that actually made um, a significant impact in their decision making and understanding how they were moving, you know, that they had to come to the realizations that everyone, you know, because white Anglo-Saxon Protestant culture is the dominant culture, and it is sometimes forced on us. Sometimes it just simply permeates our own culture and our communities in different ways, right? And so in that we have to recognize that. But here's the thing about it, right? And I never forget this. I had a conversation um with a white person, and he was saying that naturally the smaller community or the smaller group of people is going to morph, culturally into the larger. So he was basically saying that black people were going to morph into a more dominantly cultured white American culture, that it just happens naturally. And to a certain extent, he was correct. But then I asked him, I said, hold on, no, we're already on a trend, no, where there are going to be in what, 20 years, more minorities, and this was some years ago now, that there are going to be more minorities in this country than whites. So why would we continue to just let this happen? I was like, because if we do continue to just let this happen, what you're saying is in that 20 to 30-year period from now, you're going to have the minority of white people in a country where their culture is the dominant culture. I was like, and that is as close to if not is directly cultural apartheid as you can get. And he, his face turned a little red. And I was like, so why would we want to continue to allow white American culture and continue to acculturate into white American culture when there are going to be more minorities in this country? There are going to be more black and brown people in this country, and then Asians as well, than whites. Why would we let white American culture continue to be the dominant culture then? If that's the case, why would we let a minority be the dominant culture? And so that is a
Well,
question, right? That we have to look at, because we're not just talking about culture, really. Now, are we? We're also really talking about the dominance in society as a whole, the political, right? The economic, and all of those other social factors, right? And that's what we have to be mindful of and be very careful of, right? Because when we look at it, right? When we look at it, we're looking at a country that is undergoing a metamorphosis, right? Is changing in its makeup, but there's so much pushback on society and cultural norms remaining the same. And so, in that, we have to recognize, right? And you have to make that decision. And that's where your ideas of acculturation really become a key factor, right? How much acculturation are you going to allow yourself personally, and then for your children, then for your community, right? Because if you continue to allow those types of things to happen, then you end up doing what we talked about, and you talked about in the earliest talk when we started. You end up doing societal things against your own self, right? You start voting. And I think that's the biggest issue we should be able to use as an example, right? You start voting against your own self interest, right? And I've posed this before, and it's not just for African Americans, but I pose it to my people first, right? I pose it to black people, period, first, right? Whether you're African American, Afro, Caribbean, doesn't matter. Black people, I pose it to you first.
American
You know,
Indian.
are you going to be black first, or are you going to be American first? Because clearly, when you look at history and you look at things that are happening today, you realize that the interests are not on the same page, and at times they are completely opposite. So if you are voting for these quote unquote American interests, then you very well could be voting for your own, or voting against rather, your own personal interest, and that for your community. You see, um, and I'll give you a good example on the local level, right? Two good ones. Years ago, when I was living in Tallahassee, there was an issue on whether or not to build this new high school in the most affluent neighborhood, right? Predominant, of course, it was predominantly white, affluent neighborhood. And so I I personally didn't agree with it because I knew that and which was the main thing, this school was not going to be built on the budget that they claimed, right? Which means you're going to take money from these other high schools who are, and some of which are already C, D, and borderline F schools, two in particular, in minority neighborhoods, and you're going to take money from them and you're going to go build this school for kids who are already having an advantage, who already go to an A school. You're just going to give them another A school so that they don't have to travel as far. And so, I caught a little flack from other black people about, well, you have to be fair. Da, 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 da. I was like, we're being fair. They have an A school. They have the resources. They already at an A school. Is it fair to take money that you know you're going to take from these schools that need these resources more? And so they did, right? They built the school. The school went 10, listen now, the school went almost $10 million over budget. Almost $10 million over budget. They built this big, elaborate high school. And as a result, the two schools that I was most concerned about, both of them, in a matter of less than 4 years, ended up being F schools, fighting to get back to just being C and D schools. And the main issue they were talking about was the lack of resources and the lack of ability to get the right teachers with the salary they needed to stay at those schools. You see, and so once again, there were some blacks who allowed this school board, who supported this school board, and voted against their own self-interest. And we see it most prevalent now, even though I think it's funny, to be honest with you. I have no sympathy. I think it's funny. But we see all of these poor whites, particularly in the Midwest, who are crying about losing their farms and crying about, man, I don't want to hear it personally. You did it to yourself, you know? You did it to yourself. You voted against your own self-interest. We showed you. We showed you this 90-something page document, really a manifesto called Project 2025, told you exactly what they wanted to do, and you still voted for them. And now you want to come out and say what? No, you need to come out and say, I messed up. You need to come out now, admit to it, and then start doing stuff on the local level to change things. It's too late now. You've already voted them in the office, but you still got those city commissioners who support it and who are still on that agenda. Get rid of them. You still got those judges. You still got those mayors. You still have people on the state level, right? Your DAs, all of those people who are still supporting Project 2025. You have to start doing what you can do right now and get rid of them. That's the only way to stop the bleeding, so to speak. But you got to be held accountable. And holding accountability, for me in my eyes, means you also have to do things. You can't just say, I was wrong. You have to now start doing things to kind of change this this damage that's being done. You got to be held accountable. And so this whole idea of voting against your own self-interest, it has permeated, all types of communities. Um, Blacks have done it. Right now, we see it most prevalent with poor whites, but we all have to look at, you know, and weigh what is it we're really supporting, right? And I'm gonna give a. I know I'm cutting it close again. We almost at our 30-minute mark again, but I'm gonna give another quick example, right? Another quick example. I have a good childhood friend, staunch Republican. He has supported Trump. Here in Florida, he supported Jeb Bush even before DeSantis came along. He was on the Bush train. And I'm pretty sure he was on the Rick Scott train, right? And they have both done some irreparable, well, I won't say irreparable, but long-term damage, right, to society as a whole in Florida. And then DeSantis kind of has doubled down, so to speak. And so what I've always posed to him is, yeah, you have done well. You have come out fine individually. But that is also to me an indicator that you are acculturated into white American culture, which is rooted in individualism. That you weren't concerned with the black community. If you were, it wasn't nearly near the amount that you were concerned simply of yourself. You were that far more concerned about yourself and how much money you can make than black people as a whole. And then we would get into these discussions, right? And he would talk about blacks, and I was like, well, wait a minute, how did voting for these people help? What have you done? What are we talking about doing then? Because we always talk about the problems, and I'm gonna go back to her because she's a prime example. Candace Owens always talks about the problems in the black community, but you can't get one solid solution which has um, sustainability and obtainable, workable milestone goals for long-lasting change. You can't get that out of her. All you get out of her is talking about what the problem is with black people, and then she won't even talk about the root. And she even goes internationally, right? And we get that a
Yeah.
lot from black conservatives. And so I've always asked them, please show me and give me the basic direct line from this quote unquote personal responsibility to community development. Show me what that looks like, not theoretically, but practically as well, because they always say, well, if you take care of yourself, you're doing your things you're supposed to do personally, then it will go for the community. And I'm like, show me, because you all are doing well,
Yeah.
but the community
For
has.
real.
So show me directly how this taking personal responsibility that they always talk about directly
Mm-hmm.
translate into community uplift and forward progression for the black community.
Okay.
Where is that plan? What does it look like? What are the milestones? You know? because
Okay.
I will work with any black person that's talking about anything positive to move our community forward. I don't care if you call yourself a black conservative. That's fine. I don't care. Are you gonna show up and support that community center in that after school program where we're doing this tutoring and things of that nature? If you all in, we all in together. But you got to show me what it is that is going to be actually done to move the community forward. And so
Yes,
we
sir.
get back to what I was saying, and I'll wrap it up and let you take back over, brother. When we talk about
Doing
this
great.
this quote unquote personal responsibility, we sometimes move it away from personal accountability. And
Hmm.
that personal responsibility, right, does not really align with those voting patterns and those things that we're supporting in society. And you end up with just the opposite. You're voting for, you're doing and supporting things against your own self interest.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this. You good? You got more to add?
No, you take it from there, brother.
All right, all right, cool, cool, cool. I say this, AE, Dr. AE just put on what you would call a very thorough description. And he has used a plethora of examples and also um, really just told you how TI is like he does anyway. But to add to what he is saying, I just want to put a little paint where it ain't. Do you know how many uneducated uh, European Americans that exist because they love, again, what he expounded upon, their fairy tales. So fairy tales, you also have to add with what they cannot stop telling them in where Tinseltown, Hollywood. So if you understand, again, I will show you this book. I don't want to read words out of it. I just want to show you that I have one, so I understand. And Dr. AE, he's a doctor. Yeah, I have a degree. I had a bachelor's. I have life journeys. I have I have life chronicles. I may not be a doctor, but I am what you would call successful. So again, you have to know what things mean. Let me show you this book again. I want you to see this, the etymology dictionary. A lot of you don't understand how this you can download the app on your phone and all of those things. But the reason why I don't trust a lot of phone applications is because they miss out on the fundamentals of the physical touch. Am I wrong, Doctor AE? For that, I just need a. I just want you to say amen on that one because when when you have the physical, unless you rip a page out, it don't change. Am I wrong, Doctor AE?
Well, I'm leery of some of them that they don't do two things. They don't cover all of the bases, right? They're using only partial information, one book or one article or whatever, and they base a full ideology on it. And then the second is when they don't provide, you know, when they don't provide people with the ability. That's why I always, say put my email there so they people can email me rather, and I can give
Yeah.
them the different things so that you can read them yourself. The same way you hold up books constantly. You show them all of the different sources so that you can read these things for yourself. You know, you make your own and take your own route in terms of creating your critical and analytical thought on the sources and that topic. You know, here's what I came up with. This is the things that I used. Here, this says this. This says the opposite. This says this. Here are all these different things. Read them, and you come up with what you come up with, and possibly we'll come up and be on the same page to a certain
Absolutely. See.
extent, right?
Yeah.
Now I am
Yeah.
curious. You know me, brother. I am who I am. In that entomology book, in that dictionary, you know who
Yeah.
I got to do it to you because it is what it is. I am who I
Come
am.
on. What you want?
It,
What you want me to do?
it, I want to know is the N word in that dictionary
All right.
because I know what the original definition for the N word was or is rather.
All
I want to see
right. All right.
is it in that dictionary.
All right. Well, you know, it is the etymology dictionary, so we gonna do our due diligence to find out. Is it a real word? Let's see here.
Oh, it's a real word. I know this.
All right, here
It's
we
a
go.
real
No, here we
word, and
go. Here we go. We're gonna we
I
getting
know the
there.
origins of it. I know its original definition. So that's why I want to hear.
Niggard, niggle, night, nicotine. Now remember, this is not a dictionary. This is an etymology dictionary. So mind you, that
Uh-huh.
word, simply because it's not a real word, again, it might not be in here. So I'm looking for
It is
N-I.
a real word. It is a real
It's not.
word. Yes it
Okay.
was. It's
All
an
right. All right.
Anglo-Saxon. It's an
Let me
Anglo-Saxon
this is
word.
again etymology. So let me show you the word that's in here. Let me show you the real word that's in here. Let me show you the word that's in here. I can show
Uh,
you. I can show you where it's at. Let me show you. Oh, let me show you the real word.
okay.
The real word that's really in here.
Which
So
is
we're gonna get to it.
okay.
Oh, not so N E G. Negro is here.
Yeah. No. We're not talking about
Oh,
Negro. See, because those words
nope,
originally were not synonymous. So
nope, they're not. Neighbor, nay, Negro, negotiate, neglect, N
mhm.
E G. I don't see a U. That has been neglected out of this. Negus is not in this book as well. So let's look up Aboriginal.
Okay.
See,
But
they
I
make
just
up
want to
words. I'm just being
I
honest.
just want to make it
This is
clear though.
America.
But that's what I'm saying. I just want to
Let's
make
look
it
up
clear now.
abos.
Nigger was an
Hmm.
Anglo-Saxon word which
That's why it's not in here.
original definition was ignorant, right? Ignorant. And it went from in this hemisphere in this development of the United States from black N word to simply the N word being applied to all black people. So black
I got a special point to make,
people,
AE.
yeah, go ahead.
I got a special point to make.
Okay.
I did this for a reason because I understand. We understand. What we just showed people is the difference between an etymology dictionary and an
Mm-hmm.
actual dictionary. You
Right,
cannot
right.
control etymology. Etymology is a root. So let me explain where you get words like abort, where you get abomination. But let me show you how they coordulate
Okay.
abos, aboriginals. Let me explain.
Okay.
Borrowed from Latin, aborigine, the first inhabitants, especially from Latin, possibly formed from the phrase of abo, origin, from the beginning. The tendency to regard the word as a normal English plural product, the singular aborigine, by back formation. This form replaces the singular use of aboriginal, which appears from the late 1700s. Aborigine is a proper noun in early Latin history, is perhaps a tribal name altered by popular etymology. See origin. So let's look up origin, okay? Aborigine, let's go to origin. That's what it says. And just so happened I turned into slave. Well, slave, just so you happen to know, it just because I just happened to pick up the page, so it's very, 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 very synonymous with what we're talking about. So let me tell you what a slave is. It's Slavic, but let me tell you, slave, servant, slave, borrowed from Old French, uh, esclave, a Mediterranean Latin, sclavines. What does that say? Sclavius, slave, originally Slav, so called because many Slavs were sold into many Slavs. Let's be real clear. You guys, I hope AE know exactly where I'm going with this. But I just want to be
Mm-hmm.
very clear. Okay? Very clear. So, many Slavs were sold into slavery by their conquerors. The spelling Slav, without the reduction of normal English in the Germanic languages, is first recorded in Middle English about 1385 to 1559 to enslave a person from the noun. The scene of work like a slave is found in 1719 slavery, drudgery from the English slave. The sense of condition and the fact of being slave, the first recorded in 1577. Slavish, servile formed in English Slav, figuratively sense of the lacking originality. Lacking originality is first recorded in 1753. Lacking originality is recorded in 1753. Now let's go back and look up the word origin. Let's cook a little bit. Let's do a little something people just don't understand how to do. Origin. O and P. O-R. Origin. Here we go. Or sin given structure to provide with organ, borrowed through Middle French, organizer. So the originator is the organizer. Do you understand? That means you are the master, you're the organizer, original people. Let me keep reading from origins, from what even etymology really describes. Okay, provide with origin, borrow from the Dominican. Yeah. Directly from either. Yeah. I read that. Instrument, organ, organization. Probably before 1425. Organization, bodily structure, or a composition. Borrowed from Middle French, organism, and directly medieval Latin. Oh, because this is who they was learning. These, you understand? These were their tutors. The meaning, the condition of being organized is first recorded in what? 1790. And that of the action, organization, part into the whole in 1816, the meaning of a system, establishment, is first recorded in 1873. Now, in 1965, you understand why the laws and shit keep changing? They never got their shit together. They just figured out what an organization is in the late 1700s. But before you even understood what that meant, you got slavery in order first, didn't you? You start calling people what you were, Slavs. See, let me explain something. The reason why Negro ain't in this book, Slav is in this book, and every other thing is synonymous with you. Let's read Blanco. Let's read what black really means. Reason why black people, they love black, but you shouldn't love it so much. Let's go to Blanco. Blanco and Blanche. Blanche. Come on, Doc. We're going to go there for a little bit because we have to. People don't like to accept shit. So let's go to Blanche. 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 Blank. Oh, black. Oh, shit. Okay. Black. About 1150. Black developed in Old English. Bleich. Brook. Cognate. The Old High German. What? What did it say? What did it say, AE?
You said the
The
old German?
Old High German? That's why I couldn't skip. I ain't want to go to blonde. I want to go to black first. Okay. Okay, so here. Cognate. So he's very cognitive. Very cognitive meaning extremely sharp. Very cognate, very sharp. So that's why you practice cognitive dissonance. You don't want to be cognitive because cognitive and being sensible is what you reverse your actions on. But I'm going to explain how you got there, Caucasian. European. Let me explain how you stop accepting intelligence because I'm going to
Wait,
explain what you associated with intelligence.
before you
Let
go
me
there, I
finish
just
reading the definition.
hold on.
Okay.
I wanna mark that year again. What year was that again? I just wanna. What was that year for block?
About, but no, this is black. Black. We ain't went to
Right.
blanche yet. We're going to go to black first. Black. Adjective. About 1150. Black. Developed from Old English. About 700. Black, bleak, cognate, with old, high, German, black, old, Icelandic, black, dun colored, from Proto Germanic, probably before 1200 Old English. Black also, blackened, probably about 1200, from the adjective, a suffix of black end, blackberry, probably about blackbird, 1297, in a surname, black eye, 1327, in a surname, black guard, 1535, kitchen help, 1736. I say again, kitchen help, 1736. Scoundrel, again, 1736. Blackmail, 1552. Money paid outlaws for protection, black. Mail tax, tribute, Old English, payment extorted by threats before 1826. Blacksmiths, 1258. So you understand how black started deteriorating. So let's go to Blanche. Blanc. Bland, that's there. Blanche.
Now
Before
after
1398.
you wrap this show up. Well, you go ahead, but after
Was
blogs,
that?
I'm gonna wrap this show up. I got one more thing to take care of tonight, so I'm gonna let you wrap the show up. But I'm gonna listen to this
But you
blog.
know this Blanche finna be good.
Yep, go ahead. I'm gonna.
Blanche. Before 1398. Blanching, to remove. the whole of an almond, etc., after soaking, borrowed from Old French blancheur or blanche. Blanche, white, blank. The Anglo French blanche, feminine of blank. The earlier Middle English blancher, cosmic, powder for whitening, suggested the possibility of earlier use of the verb blanchen. Now, when it go to, let's go to blank. Blank, blahevend, white, pale, colorless, borrowed from Old English, white, shiny, of West Germanic origins. Bright, shiny. See, like a horse or a proto-Germanic. Oh, no, 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 no. They ain't trying to. Meaning having empty spaces to be filled in the first recorded 1399. Before 1392, the obsolete sense, referring to a small French coin later, blank space. So basically, what I'm describing to you is the reason why they use verbiage to dispel, dispel their fathers, their icons, their gods, is because they had to be truthful. They had to be outside of themselves. They had to walk with some type of dignity. But they said, well, what if I just pretend? So yeah, check it out. This is the Will Is podcast tonight. Yeah, that's the end of the show. But I want AE. Not just yet. Not just yet. Hold on. That's the last part I got because I had to make that point clear. But AE, please clean up for me with this one. You got it.
Well, we did a lot on this one. We we ended up going down a deep rabbit hole that hole ended up 5 miles away, but that's all right. Um, that whole idea, though, the initial conversation about voting and doing things against your own self-interest, I think it still stems from this need for others outside of a culture to acculturate, and then for those within that culture, um, it is that sense of identity that they need because they don't have that individual identity to rest on, right? Um, and so that identity as a collective whole means more to them than their own self-worth identity. So they will vote against their own self-interest because that collective identity is better than the one that they have for themselves personally. Now, in terms of looking at these words and etymology, you know, we we can look at that in terms of understanding the roots, and the original intent of words and how now we can see them develop. For those that even stayed the same and remained constant, you still see the development in how these words are beginning to shape and form how our lives are going to play out. And so I give a quick example and I'm done. I learned by being on this commission some years ago. I learned, and on the commission, we as a whole learned a very, very good lesson. There was some congressional, verbiage. Um, and so we were beginning to hold and use these mandates, right? And what we had to learn and understand was two simple words that could change everything. And I want to leave you all with these two words because it is often used in politics and in lawmaking, and they make a world of difference. And those two words are shall and may. When you read a law and it says such and such may, that automatically gives the governing body the opportunity to back out of it. They say they may allocate $5 million, and you think your community or the city or whatever is going to get $5 million for that project, and you go back and you
We need
look
you to
at
say,
it,
I will.
it says may. That means they can decide, no, we're not going to do
Trick
it.
bag. Double
But
talk.
right, it's a play. It is. Because if they put shall, if that same law and they change that
Until I
small word
shall not.
may to shall, then it becomes mandatory. So you have to look at your local ordinances, your local laws, your state laws, and even what's coming out of US Congress. And you have to question why some things are shall and why some things are may. And if it is very important to your community, you ensure that it says shall, and you do not let them write it as may.
Trick bag with me.
It
Because
is.
they may not.
Right. It gives them the out. It gives that government governing body the out to not do something for your community. So when you go back and 5 years ago you said that, they'll come right back with it. No, we said we may. It says it may allocate $5 million over the next 15 years. We decided to nix all of that. You went from $5 million to zero because we
No.
decided not,
We don't
plain
want
and
to do
simple.
it no more. So,
That's
you good? You
that's
done?
understanding. No, that's
Okay.
just the wrap up and understanding why the etymology and all of that is important in understanding these words. And I never forget a lawyer once. I heard a lawyer once say if he had to go back, he was talking to young students that were looking at going to law school. He said if he had to go back before he got to law school, he would have majored probably or at least minored at the very least in English, in the language, because that is the
Law.
core to how this law is really being and going to be applied and understanding it. All right, I'm done.
Well, that's as always, Doctor AE. You do a phenomenal, thorough job. Uh, I know us here at the Realistic Podcast. You are, like the chief alumni. So we love to have you on. We love when you grace us with your presence. I had to stir up a little controversy because I'm like, I want to see what they're gonna say if we don't go on Thursday or something like that. Like, they probably think something's wrong. No, nothing would never be wrong. Let me tell you something. Being me and Doctor AE, we're synonymous. We're trying to push to get his show off the ground, but I need y'all to do a couple of things. You know how you can help us with that? Buy his books. Hit him on the email, please. Check me out. Let me tell you something. If you, especially you guys from in the southeast, you guys, you Americans from the north, you probably got folks in the south. When you buy this book, because of his knowledge and his years in the archives, years of study, years of putting things together, references after references. You know what I'm saying? And he visited place after place. The documentary is coming soon. It needs help. So Dr. EAE, give them all you got, plugging them in before we get up out here. I need you to tell them what books to buy, where to locate them, where to get them from, how to get them, and let's keep pushing this. Hey, if y'all want to be a part of something great, help the great, help the great doctor out, man. Let's. So go ahead, plug away, doc.
All right, I'll make it real quick. profaedixon.com and click on the tab for books and support that way. Share, like, read that knowledge, share that knowledge. But you got to get it first. So I encourage you to go to my website, profaedixon.com, and then click on the tab for books and buy the books. The other thing is the projects. The main one right now is the Black Seminole Project. I invite you, go to blackseminoleproject.com. We have a short documentary. It's about 35 minutes. This is an important documentary because it discusses the people who created the first Underground Railroad, the largest slave rebellion, and their people and what they are going through right now today. And so the name of the documentary, and it's the short doc, Freedom Seekers, the Black Seminole Story. Go to the website, watch the doc, help us, support us so that we can go ahead and finish the entire documentary and look for the film and continue to take this journey as we do those three things, right? We provide a voice to the voiceless, we make cultural connections, and we use this information to deal with issues that we are facing today. So
Straight
please
up.
support profaedixon.com with the books, Black Seminole Project with the films, rather, the documentary and the film. Thank you, brother, for giving me the opportunity to put that out there.
Hey man, I tell my audience, I tell you, my brother, like we always tell them, like, hey, we doing all of this together. Y'all can help me out with my journey. I appreciate you all for getting me to 19 5+ subscribers in 4 months, man. That's phenomenal. I put in a lot of work. Me and this super guy here, man, this super brain, I try to make sure, like, when I told him I got something for him, because I think what he had to say, the world needs to hear. So we're a global platform. We new, and we are extremely grateful. Dr. AE will be having his own show. We're trying to get him to where, so support him, buy his books. You know what I'm saying? You can support me by, you know what I'm saying, donating to, hashtag Devarin. You know what I'm saying? Cash out me. You know what I'm saying? If you want to send me a couple dollars, cool too. I need help, and I'm getting there. But also, I don't I just want you to. The only way you can help me for real is just keep watching, and subscribing, and giving the show out to other people. To the Wheelers Podcast, it's about being the best version of yourself, knowing the best version of yourself, putting that version out. You know what I'm saying? Pivoting into the better being of yourself. That's what this is about. So, due to the fact that I'm an American Indian, I'm from the Southeast. I'm from Pensacola, Florida, raised in Pensacola, Columbus, by way of the Marine Corps, and, and as a grown man coming back to the ATL, dig this, man. I'm an American Indian. I've been all over the world. I've been told what I was before I knew who I was by foreigners in their lands, and they knew who I was when I arrived at a young age. That kept me with the perspective of saying, well, my grandmother was right. She told me, study the Battle of Burnt Corn, Alabama, and you'll find out that was a Revolutionary War. Creeks. It was Cherokees. It was Choctaws. It was the Last of Us until the Seminoles. But anyway, y'all know this shit. We've been doing this. We're gonna keep doing more. We're gonna keep doing more shows. Dr. A East, he's my friend, my brother, and he's your residential professor on the Willis podcast. So hey, I want y'all to know that this is just the end of the show. Okay, but y'all gotta get to my favorite part now. God damn it, you got yours, let me get mine. You know? So here we go. All right. Y'all gotta say it with me. You know this. The wheel.
The wheel is yours.
Yours. Yeah, we're gonna see y'all. We're gonna see y'all again this week too.